Welcome to the Fund2000.com real estate podcast. I'm Chuck Ham, and today we have Luke Erickson. Luke, welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Well, let's talk about insurance and the homeowner's nightmare of finding affordable insurance in California. We reviewed some material and got caught up a little bit in preparation for today. We've got transactions, we've got friends, we've got all kinds of the issues with homeowners insurance all around us. And I think if you're not in the real estate, if you're not in a real estate transaction, you might not know about it. You might see a headline here and there, but you probably haven't learned what the issue is really about. So what did you hear about homeowners insurance, Luke, before you got involved? And what do you think after you got started reviewing stuff?
Well, I would say the first off, you're very timely in that I feel like I have two scenarios that are real interesting in that I have a buddy who doesn't live in California, but he owns rental properties in Ohio and he owned one in Florida. And very similar to here, they're becoming very, here being California. He was almost getting edged out of his Florida property in that they were like, your insurance is going to be up in August and we're not sure we're going to renew because of
Mhm.
hurricanes, etc. Like,
Up meaning expired, not up as in rates, because both of those things are
yes, yes,
happening.
yes, yes, for sure. No, up is in like, we're not going to renew your policy in August. And it was almost, and he was getting this notice, I forget, like early June or something. And he really didn't like the property in that it was farther away from him. He lives in Ohio where he's got multiple other properties. So, he ended up selling, but it was like a big motivator because if you don't, like, I guess until I got into the real estate, sort of dipped my toe in the real estate world, I didn't really understand the importance of, how having all those things, having insurance comes into play in order to execute the transaction.
Well, the big
And
thing is getting a mortgage, right? I mean,
sure,
nobody's going to lend against a property that's not insured against whatever kind of catastrophic loss that could, especially like a wildfire in California, right?
exactly. And so, well, yeah, so then I have my buddy's experience, and then my own wife was talking to me about California, and she just feels like it's just a ticking time bomb. Like, when is the day when we're going to? And it's funny because my insurer is the agent I work with is it's her uncle. It's her uncle is our insurance agent, and so. When's Uncle Jim going to call us? And he probably won't. It'll be his some secretary or somebody that will be like, we're not going to renew your policy because of fires or I like, and I don't know, we're not on a hill or we're not, but it's that seems to be the way things are going in California with a lot of wildfires, etc. There's an impetus for insurance not to insure, which is kind of wild because they're the ones who kind of got us in this mess.
Well, I
They
mean, that's
advocated
we
with the
should.
government to make sure that like there's you're right, there's some legalese in that. You're right, nobody wants to put up a mortgage for a property unless there's some insurance or some, but I feel like this is a little bit more outlandish. My wife was like, you're crazy, but like I feel like insurance became a required thing because insurance agencies were like, this is a valid thing and like you're going to need this. And so there are laws and particular things in place so that you have those things and you have to have them. But and in a mortgage setting, there is there is no moving forward. You are stopped.
Luckily, it's not like getting a driver's license and driving that you're required to have insurance, because the only requirement is if you have a loan, right?
True,
On the
true.
other hand, you probably have a lot higher duty if you're a homeowners association to get insurance. You could self-insure, but most of them don't because they don't have the assets to do that.
Sure.
But the homeowners associations, the HOAs, they're having a huge issue right now getting renewals, or getting something that's even affordable because of this lack of ability to get it. Well, I think it's mostly about fire insurance if you're
Fire
in a fire
insurance.
area, which we are in. But when a homeowners association does not insure the structures that they, especially if there's common walls, if you live in a
Sure.
townhouse or a condo or some kind of a PUD, and the HOA is responsible for getting the insurance and they don't, and that's something that you and I, we had a transaction earlier this year. You and I know this family who in fact, we know a couple of families in that area who they are not able to sell their property because no buyer is paying cash for these properties. Therefore, they need to get a loan. No buyer can get a loan because the HOA has not bought insurance. So, I mean, in that sense, it's required. You have to have insurance from that perspective. Otherwise, you're just killing the value of your whole community.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's a necessary insurance is a necessary evil, and as you can tell in that story, is it's very sad, and it's really kind of, what are we all staring down? What happens when, more insurance? Like, I'm just lucky that my insurance hasn't called me up. Like, I don't know where I will go when, you know, because it gets kind of wild to get insurance after that, at that point, or
Well,
will I be
have you
take
heard
the
of the
risk?
FAIR Plan?
Yes, I read a little bit about the fair plan,
Your mortgage
and
will put you on it automatically if you don't have insurance, and that's not good because it's expensive.
yeah, it's not very good. So yeah, we hope that does. Hopefully, Uncle Jim will come through for us.
Well, let's
But
talk about some of the causes of what got us here. I think that's what people are
sure,
wondering about. So, one of the issues is the legislature, and the regulations, a certain proposition that was passed, and I don't know if voters put that proposition on. I doubt it. I think uh,
motivated for sure by the insurance companies. I mean,
what
well, by banks. I don't know.
I don't
Like,
know. I
there's
don't know the
definitely
history.
wasn't us. It was
It wasn't me.
speaking it for the common man. I would say no. We did not advocate for this.
Well, so the big issue right now is that there is no insurance company in the state of California can raise their rates without getting prior approval from the commissioner. And they need a certain amount of time. Apparently, it takes them a long time to do that. And by the time they approve the rate, it's outdated already because the rates are based
Right.
on the past, what, 20 years or something like that of whatever
Sure.
losses they've had. So insurance companies aren't able to update the rates fast enough for the increase in cost. So the increase in cost is another situation that's been super difficult. We've had wildfires, we've had um,
Well,
you
and
know
it's not like this problem is going away. Like, I don't, I feel it's funny. I just went on vacation to Virginia. They have a water table, meaning they get rain. So
mhm,
wildfires aren't as common. They happen.
mhm,
But they have everything, most things are wet there. But anyways, I ran into a person who was from California, and they were like, "Well, I think it's your year to burn." That's what they said to me, because they were like, "You have these big boon years where we have lots of water and we get some growth, and then all that dries up and it's ripe for burning." And they were almost like it was just like a set cycle. They were like, "Yeah, you guys, everything will get nice and green and grow, and then it'll die, and then that's the year that the fires will come, and like there'll be more fires." And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get into the speculation around the don't get my mother started on global warming. But
oh,
anyways, like
man,
I feel
man,
like
man caused global warming.
sure, but I feel like fires aren't going anywhere. But you're right. They've only gotten worse, and the risk to insurers is not, some of them have gone bankrupt. So
Hmm.
I understand when you want to look at it on the business side, on the reverse. Well, frankly, I think insurance is a scam, but like, I guess it is and it isn't. It's nice to know there's some safety in knowing that your assets are protected by this monthly fee you're paying. But at the same time, I'm a skeptic, and I'm like, I want to just quote Berkshire Hathaway. What's his name? I can't think of it all of a sudden.
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, where, like he funds his own insurance, and but like him and Munger were talking about their houses. They have, Munger owns several properties, and he said, why, like I wouldn't, I could replace it for cheaper than what I would be paying on the insurance premiums to, to have the property. Granted, he owned them outright, of course,
Hmm.
but he was like, what I would be paying on the premium, I could replace the thing, for a year, I could replace whatever.
Yep.
He's like, other than the, he's like, the memories, your family memories or whatever, but he's like, the building, the structure, if it all went up, I could replace that for a couple $100,000. But not everybody has that, like nobody's rolling that capital. So there is some niceties to having the insurance. It's funny, we talk about the fire insurance, but every year when my earthquake insurance comes up for California, which I also think is a racket, but we just had an earthquake a couple days ago that
Hmm.
wasn't huge, but it would, kind of reminds you that it's out there. But every time I get it, I get the bill for my earthquake insurance. I think, should I take the risk? Like, because I've been paying on it for 10 years now. And that was just money I'm just flushing down the drain, I guess. And ultimately, if there is a large earthquake that takes out most of these houses, like I hear horror stories from the 94 quake, what, insurance, if you had insurance, you were covered, but it was almost like everybody else got helped out too with FEMA and different things, but it was almost like you got first of the line because you had insurance. And so it was like, I don't know,
Yeah,
uh,
and that the example of that I read about was the Northridge quake in '94. Nobody could have predicted it. I mean, obviously everybody knew that there was
sure,
going to be an earthquake in California. We have a history of earthquakes, but the insurance companies who are in the business of predicting and calculating risk and assessing premiums, or at least figuring out what the premium should be based on the history, they were completely caught off guard. So that's what I mean. Like they didn't properly predict it. A lot of them went out of business because of all the huge losses. But
sure,
I think one of the points that I'd like to get across is what the legislature is doing wrong here, because they're really the big problem. And one of the reasons why the Northridge earthquake caused so much loss was because the insurance companies were not, well, it caused loss, but beyond what the insurance companies could tolerate, because they weren't
sure,
properly funded because of the law. They're only allowed to base their premiums on the previous, I think it's 20 years, right? So if you're
yeah,
only, if there has been no major earthquake in 20 years, but you know one is coming, should you even be insuring in California? That's the way they look at it, because there's going to
sure.
be a huge catastrophic loss at some point. I'm surprised you have earthquake insurance. I mean, I know that it's out there, but a lot of people don't even get
Well,
it.
it's terrible. I mean, like it doesn't cover me for anything.
uh,
It's like the bare essentials. And so that's the other thing with insurance. I feel like there are risk averse people and there are risk people. And I may be a little, you can choose to be either way. And
mhm.
some people are risk averse and you would lean towards more insurance. I am more lean towards a risk setting. I'm more interested in keeping my money. And that's playing a little bit of I'm rolling the dice there. And you're absolutely right on, as far as the insurance agencies go, they're making, they should be looking ahead, but it's like, how do you predict a natural disaster? It's just like the wildfires, like PG&E. How do you predict we're gonna light up this fire that takes out a whole town? And like, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like this is where I get into the insurance being a scam, and I don't want that. Like I think you're spot on, in that really shouldn't be the focus. But I apologize, I keep bringing us back there. But I think, I guess I'd like to get across what are some of the resources as a homeowner. What are some of the resources that we have to, like, other than get out and vote? Like I don't know what we can
Yeah.
do to help this situation, there are insurers that are leaving because of the wildfires. They're not offering policies, and the same thing's happening. People are currently in a property that they're paying on, and their insurance is not, and they're being forced onto these other, onto the I've just
Fair
lost
plan.
my mind on the fair
Yeah.
plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Well, what can you do? I mean, you'd say get out the vote. As realtors, we had this opportunity a couple months ago to meet with Lara, who's our insurance commissioner in the state of California. And I wasn't able to go. I had planned on it, and then my whole schedule changed as we've been discussing. But um, they're definitely doing things, but they're doing the wrong things. So in California, we have so much backwards policy, and insurance
mm,
is a perfect example of backwards policy. We really do need to get out the vote. All this policy just shoots the voters in the foot. The homeowners or potential homeowners, our clients, our business is getting
sure.
it's not as good as it could be if we just had good policy. And one example is this 20-year thing. If you as an insurance company are only allowed to insure based on or set rates based on only 20 years of history, then you're you're not going to be able to really accurately set rates for earthquakes because that's not how they happen.
Sure.
The other thing is they're not the insurance companies are now have a cap on their rates, and not only that, they have to get approved if they want to go beyond the cap. So they are allowed to go above the cap if they get approval, but the insurance commissioner doesn't review them. So as voters, the insurance commissioner doesn't turn around the review and the approval very quickly.
Hmm.
So that was a new regulation that was passed, and that happened only days before State Farm announced that it's leaving California.
Hmm.
And then they did some other kind of regulatory move, and then another insurance company left. So they're like sending these messages to not only voters, but to the California government that you're doing stuff, but it's the wrong stuff. So we
Right.
really, as voters, like you say, we need to get out the vote. We need to speak with our, not maybe speaking with your feet, just leave. I don't know. I mean, I don't,
Well, yeah, for sure. That's one quick solution is to just move away.
yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, like, I guess talk with your legislators. See, that's the other thing that I don't. It's funny. It's like I think that's the appropriate process, and we're supposed to. But like, all that takes time. In the meantime, Rome is burning. Like,
Mhm.
we don't have a solution for today for this. We've got these sort of band-aid things, and honestly, it's kind of disheartening as a homeowner to be like, what are my options? Oh, you don't have any.
Well,
Like,
and that's why
we've
we're
driven
here.
all the options away. You have one option.
That's why we're here, because I think people are hearing about it, but they're not hearing the why, and they're not hearing what the solution is. And
Sure.
eventually, eventually people they come out of these bad policy decisions because of crisis or because of just difficulty with the budget, and economies go up and down. They crash because of these kinds of policies. 2008, 2009, mortgage crisis, home, economic crisis and financial crisis. Banks,
Sure.
we're seeing a little bit of that stuff now, and that was 2008, 2009, which is 15 years ago, and these things go in cycles. So not only do we have earthquakes and wildfires that kind of go on cycles, possibly maybe just bad policy comes and goes in the same way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. There's no easy solution, and I feel like it doesn't, yeah, like, there is no, everything is just going up.
Mhm.
Even if you can get someone to insure you, it's going to be exponentially bigger than what it was. And which I guess you'd be happy that that you can get insurance, or that you can keep your home. But I feel like it is. I mean, you mentioned earlier. I feel like it's really kind of choking some of the transactions. It's choking the ability to complete transactions, to find buyers for properties, because nobody can get funded. If you can't get funded, how are you supposed to make a transaction happen? You don't.
Well,
Like,
from the mortgage side, you know that we don't. if we have a client who's getting a mortgage, we have to calculate the total housing payment, and that goes into the
Sure.
debt to income ratio. So insurance, if you're getting a mortgage, you're getting insurance, and with the high cost of insurance, uh, that annual premium is something. It could affect your if you're already close on the debt to income ratio, affecting it by 1 or 2% or 5%, whatever it's going to be for your area and your income, insurance itself could price you out of buying a
Right.
home. You talked about everything going up too. Inflation's a part of insurance
Sure.
premiums. They have to calculate
Sure.
that stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I don't see it coming down anytime soon, like interest rates. But you
Yeah.
know, I don't know. Like, what a depressing topic. Why did we pick insurance? I just blame you.
Well,
Like I
it's
just
my
feel like
fault.
I wish there was happier news for people, but sadly, this is kind of the state of things. I mean, encouraged to get the vote out, talk to your legislators, but like that's going to take time. And even then, I don't know when. I just keep thinking, when will it stop? It's never going to stop. You're always going to
Well,
need insurance,
y-
and
that's why we're talking about this because it might be depressing, but we need people to fix it. And this is
sure.
how we do it. We're getting the word out through this podcast. All of these issues that we're talking about, they point to policy, even the wildfires. Did you have a chance to read the one I sent you?
I didn't read all of it, but yes, I
Okay.
mean, I was reading about some of the cataclysmic wildfires that have happened, and the
Forest management, that
yeah,
was a policy decision that whereas before and other countries still do this, as you travel or as you go to, I don't know if other states are doing better, I'm sure they are, but California has this hands-off forest management policy, which is fueling the fire, literally. So, I mean, even that's a policy issue. We look at um, wildfires as this natural thing, and it is a natural thing, but apparently, because we don't allow fires, because we have these property risk models and these issues where we don't want to lose property, therefore we're not properly, allowing the fires to happen the way they're supposed to happen. So it feel even that's a policy decision. It's just
right.
crazy. So I think that's the big point for today is um, we need to think about why we vote the way we do, why we choose the people we choose, and pay close attention to what they say. In California, we don't have good options for insurance, and that is, I think, the reason. What else do you think there, Luke, as we wrap it up here?
Well, I just keep wondering, are we going to see more of like like, is there going to be now more government involvement, like with the insurers in that, are we going to see those caps change? Or are we going, like, are they just going to start charge us more where, like, well, they'll have to be allowed to charge us more or something, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be interested to see how the coming years sort of play out. It's definitely not a pretty picture, and encourages me to escape while I can. But and I don't know. Like, I feel like that's like my buddy's transaction in Florida. He really just kind of viewed it as it was inevitable, and I don't want to mess around with, once my policy ends, looking for another policy. Certainly was a great property that was earning income, and he had renters, etc. But it was like, ultimately, and I feel the same way in California, is like, is that what I'm looking at? I'm just staring down. I'm just waiting for the day when it just, the rug's pulled out from under me, and now I've got to go find new insurance. And what's my recourse? And it's not great. And so
Mhm.
maybe you want to make those choices now, so that you can, sort of hedge your bets. Like, at the same time, I love the weather. So like, it's just tough, man. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Tough decisions. Well, thanks for joining me today, Luke. It's been good talking to you and talking about insurance. Um, if you have any questions about this, email either Luke at sold2000.com or Chuck at fund2000.com. Thanks for listening.